Good evening, race fans, and welcome to tonight's coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series, live from the virtual Las Vegas Motor Speedway in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm Justin Prince. Alongside the booth tonight are Blake McCandless, as well as the driver of the number 15 Jim Beaver Esports Ford Mustang and the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Michael Guerrilla. Ryan Bauer, as always, is upstairs punching the buttons in the virtual production trailer powered by Top Flight Computers. First things first here, Blake. These drivers expected to deal with an interesting one. Cool racetrack, yes, for Las Vegas, but expecting a very feisty race and a bunch of battles.
And you're exactly right, Justin. I think all of us were kind of taken aback at the track temperature. You think we're coming to Las Vegas in July. It should be sweltering out here, but you know what? We're in Las Vegas, Nevada, and look at that, a cool 65 degrees. Just a nice little January day here in Las Vegas. But for these drivers, that means they have a lot more grip. They're not going to have to worry about tire fall off, and there's going to be a lot of speed out on the racetrack today.
These drivers have been preparing all week, thousands upon thousands of laps for this racetrack today. Let's take a look at your Google Earth here in Las Vegas, Nevada. 1.5 miles to the distance of this racetrack. That's 2.41 kilometers. Opened in 1996. That was 24 years ago. It features 20 degrees of banking in the turns, progressive banking, with 9 to 12 degrees of banking in the front and back stretches around this racetrack. 134 laps are on the docket tonight, 201 miles, 323.5 kilometers. In sim date is July the 21st. In sim time, just past 2:50 p.m. Michael, let's bring you in on this one. Tonight, going to be an interesting one again with the racing this evening. What do you expect for these trucks this evening?
I expect to see a lot of jockeying early on, especially turns 1 and 2, looking for that middle line as is preferred on these restarts. So it'd be interested to see how those go throughout the night. And I also expect to see different strategies come into play. I know it might be a typical strategy as it looks on the lap distance being 134 laps, but it'll be interesting to see how the undercuts and overcuts are played into tonight. But overall, I'm just looking to see who can come and who can go at the right time during the race.
You see the qualifying times popping up on the left side of your screen. Currently, Eddie Kerner at the top of the board, Jarrett Lieber in second, LaPrade, Bose, and Justice, your current top 5 as they continue to cycle through. But as this season starts to wind down into the second half of the campaign, Blake, the drivers are going to be focusing a lot on these tracks coming up, as well as making sure they don't have to rely on a drop or make mistakes, because with 5 races to go, one bad race could take you out of the fight.
Well, you think about 5 races left, and you can really cut it to about 4 for some of these guys that really struggle on the road courses. You see, we're visiting Canadian Tire Motorsport Park next, and for a couple of these drivers, that's their opportunity, if they are road course aces, to make up those last valuable points that they need. But otherwise, that's going to be one of those races where these guys are really looking to capitalize on tracks like Texas, like Phoenix, where Canadian Tire, they want that to be their wild card if they need it.
And the driver that's on top of that board, by the way, on the left side of your screen, Garrett Conrath, this is a much-needed performance because with drops factored in, this is per calculations from John Gerlinski of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Michael. He is the bubble driver entering tonight. In total, about 54 to 57 drivers have a mathematical shot in the final 5 races of the campaign, depending on how their points fare out in these closing races. The pressure is on.
Oh, the pressure is certainly on, indeed. I know for my sake, I was in the same situation last year in the Pro Series before we went back to Coke this year. But I was on that bubble for the longest time, just trying to make it back after some tough luck in some of the early races. So it was really difficult sitting there knowing the pressure that you're on that line. So, I mean, going into these final few races, it's really crucial if you are towards that cut line that you need to perform and at least make the salvage a day, even if you do have a bad day. Like, let's say if you have an incident today here, just make sure you try and salvage it as much as you can and just get all the points you can and make the best of the worst.
Drivers are now wrapping up qualified. That means it's time to roll the trucks down to the front straight away. It's time to look at your starting lineup for tonight's action for the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series. Garrett Conrath, your pole sitter tonight with a 30.558, followed by Anthony Burrows on row 1. Caden Honeycutt starts in third tonight alongside Stephen Wilson. The points leader without drops at the moment is Jake Matheson. He starts in 5th tonight, dead even time with Mitchell DeJohn as he looks to try and get himself into the Coke Series on top of his skills and on the rallycross side. Eddie Kerner starts in 7th tonight alongside Jarrett Lieber with Will Norton in P9. Brian LaPrat rounds out the top 10, Blake.
It'll be Michael Gonzalez in 11th, Michael Finlayson in 12th. Femi Olot, he's been awfully strong, and we know those dead zone / total advantage trucks are going to be awfully fast tonight. He's in 13th. Ryan Doucette a bit behind his Nexus Esports teammates in 14th. Alan Bowes in 15th. 16th is Adam Gilliland. 17th is Derek Justice, followed by his North Force teammate and Isaac Gannon 18th. Drew Freenage is 19th, and Garrett Maines, the number 1 car in the field with the highest I rating. He'll run out the top 20.
And in 21st is Justin Lisenby. 22nd, Boyd Hogan from Legacy. 23rd will be Brian Mercurio. 24th, Brennan Hoff at a 30.809. It's a little bit of 2.5 tenths off of our leader, Garrett Conrath. 25th goes to Donovan Strauss. 26th is Brian Blackman from Slip Angle Motorsports. Alec Martinez, 27th, is Seth the Merchant in 28th, setting the last time at a 32.320 second lap time. And in 29th is Braden Buyos, and rounding out the top 30 is Carson Hocevar.
Rounding out the drivers tonight, Dylan Jones in 31st will start alongside Blake Neer. And rounding out the field, 2 drivers, technically aligned Slip Angles Casey Tucker, Bobby Earnhardt's Legacy Esports' Trayden Lapsevich are the last trucks on the grid. Once again, temperatures tonight, 65 degrees is the air temp, 101 degrees is the track temp. Winds currently gusting 5 miles an hour to 6 miles an hour to the west. Low humidity as well in this race. In sim date, July 21st, 2020, just past 3 p.m. here in the desert. Your final thoughts first off, Blake, on what you expect to see tonight.
Well, Justin, I expect to see a lot of jockeying for track position early. Again, these trucks with the spec engines that they have, when we've come to these tracks, you generally see a lot of pack racing early on before you really start to see who built their setup for the long run and who wants that short run speed. But with the cooler track temperatures, I think you're going to see a lot of these guys breathing down each other's necks for the entirety of the race. It should make it very exciting out there for the viewers.
Michael, your keys to victory tonight.
Obviously, track position. Once you guys get further back in the field, it's harder and harder to get up towards the front with how even these trucks are throughout the entire field. So being able to stay up front, be a part of the mix is definitely going to be important, and staying on top of strategy throughout the night.
In total, 34 trucks all set to get going here from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Nexus Esports is Garrett Conrath on the inside, his teammate Anthony Burrows on the outside. Who will come up on top in Vegas? We're about to find out. Pace car peels off in turn 4. Green flag waits up at the stand. Round number 10 of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series is underway.
And what a start for these drivers as they're going to fan out 3 wide at the front of the field. 3 wide as they go in. Caden Honeycutt makes a move to the bottom side. He'll take the lead on an impressive restart from that Nexus Esports driver. Conrath has to settle for second. They're still 3 wide, now battling for third.
And that's an interesting decision. Jumped right to the bottom side along the apron, took advantage of that line. Conrath had a bit of a slower start, but now Wilson's forced 2 wide. DeJohn is 3 wide in the middle of the pack. First lap, though, goes to Caden Honeycutt at the front of the field as they're 3-4 wide in the pack.
They are still 3-4 wide, slowly starting to figure it out here. You see Eddie Kerner starting to struggle there on the bottom line, right there in 7th spot. He's got to file himself up behind the number 9 machine there of Anthony Burrows. Settle himself in front of a 2 wide battle between Will Norton and Jarrett Lieber. But yeah, an amazing start there from our leader, Caden Honeycutt, as he was able to take advantage of Conrad's poor start.
Well, Norton's been having a good past couple weeks. He's off to a good start, already +1 in this race. Fastest lap so far going to Wilson, who's already cut his way up to second. And he talked about it, Blake. Speed was to be expected from the total advantage in Nexus machines. They're a majority of your top 5 and top 10 trucks at the moment outside of Mitchell DeJohn and company.
Well, you're exactly right. They have been awfully strong in qualifying for several weeks now. Garrett Conrath being the pole winner tonight, and he is one of the few drivers who has been able to get a pole award, and nearly all of them have been affiliated with Nexus Esports. Last 3-4 weeks, I believe, or three or four races rather, we've seen a Nexus Esports driver take the pole award, and I'm just shocked that Caden Honeycutt, who likely kind of had some team communication on when that restart was going to go, that he just said, to heck with this, I'm going to take advantage of it, jump out in front and grab this lead and all that clean air.
He's already been shuffled out to P4 in this grouping. Single file amongst the top trucks at the moment. Norden still trying to push on through. Jarrett Liebert, his teammate, trying to push on through. These teammates have not been playing around. They've been willing to fight their own teammates to get track position early.
Yeah, it's something you have to do. Sometimes you do have to go head-to-head with your teammate. Obviously, the cardinal sin of being a teammate is hitting them and wrecking them along with yourself. So, I mean, that's always important to make sure you're not getting into that situation where you're forcing the issue. But it's always important to be battling your teammates and trying to get up to the front as best as you can. As you see, Liebert is still kind of struggling with Burrows on his outside as they're battling for that position number 8. It looks like the outside's got a little more momentum through 3 and 4. As you see, Burrows is rolling that top still through 1 and 2, as that's the preferred line because the bottom of 1 and 2 is so bumpy on the very bottom. But yeah, there goes Burrows completing the pass off of turn 2 down the backstretch.
That's forced everyone back single file. Just as backdrop, you see Michael Finlayson trying to rebound after a rough race at Dover. Battling with Michael Gonzalez, everyone else single file amongst the top 10 at the moment. Your thoughts so far, Blake?
Well, it's hard to settle things out. We've seen them mostly get single file up in the top 15, but they are still too wide racing back in the pack, right around Ryan Doucette, Derek Justice, Briar LaPrade. They are still trying to sort things out here, and this is what we talked about now as you see even more trucks start to get in line as Doucette and Justice still battle for that 15th position. This is what you're going to see, but these restarts are so important with how much momentum matters with these trucks, with how hard they are to get up to speed. You have to make your moves on these restarts, and we're finally starting to see it now. 8 laps in, the guys are really starting to settle in.
And it was on social media just prior to this race about an hour or so ago that North Force driver Derek Justice said he wasn't sure what to expect in speed tonight, Michael. He's currently in P15 at the moment. We've seen him pick up pace on the long run, but he wasn't quite sure on how this truck will respond in this race.
Yeah, and it's always difficult to know, especially after you have a poor qualifying like he did after he started back in 17th. But we've seen him, especially last week at Dover, where he worked his way through the field very methodically throughout the race. So as you see him make the pass right there, Briar LaPrade for the 14th position through turns 1 and 2. But yeah, Justice has had the pace all year long, especially after that win at Atlanta. So it wouldn't shock me if they brought a similar setup than what they had at Atlanta a few months ago. But yeah, Justice just needs to hold on to that truck for the first opening lap, see how he's faring, and just try to feel out what he needs to do to improve on where he's at right now as he searches on the back bumper of Adam Gilliland.
Up at the front, though, you see Honeycutt trying to hold on to a 0.2 of a second advantage over Steven Wilson. And they're starting to change up their lines a little bit up here. Wilson trying to use the middle in 1 and 2. DeJean trying to use the bottom line. Honeycutt also trying to use the bottom line in this group. Conrad has still been able to hold on in this front grouping. Here's the bright side, too, here, Blake. That's a whole train of Nexus machines right behind him.
Oh, certainly so. You love to look in your rearview mirror and see a bunch of teammates with you outside of DeJong. And, you know, that's just been how these last couple of races have gone for Nexus Esports. We talked about at Atlanta and a couple other tracks how the team had kind of struggled, but really since then, not only in their qualifying, but now they found it in the race pace too, that a lot of these drivers are starting to make themselves contenders week in and week out, as we still see single file amongst the first 15 trucks now, which now includes Adam Gillen, the Gary Mercer Trucking Chevrolet, was on Podium Esports last night, and he's trying to make a bang here in Road to Pro.
Indeed, we're taking a look at Gillen right now in 14th position, right behind Derek Justice. Justice up 13th. Going one of those drivers looking to try and claw his way back into the Pro Series, and specifically the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Michael.
Yeah, Adam has definitely been a veteran of the series, and unfortunately he was knocked out of the series last year. But, I mean, he's always been pretty competitive. As you see him ranged up to the back of Justice there, he's definitely got some pace in that truck early on, so we'll have to see how that plays out throughout the run. But Gilliland knows what it takes to get done. As you see Alan Bowes, too, going down to his inside. He's another former Coke Series driver. As you see him dive to the inside of turns 1 and 2. as he's going to hold on the bottom there and make it stick underneath Gillen, and they're going to file it to double wide. But there's two former Coke Series drivers who know how to get it done and are trying to claw back into the series.
Bose coming into tonight with drops factored in second position. One of 4 drivers currently clinched if they compete the rest of the season in this series. So good points paying position. By the way, quick shout out to be given quickly to John Theodore, just with the 100,000 oval lap mark. And his Road to Pro split, there are several different splits for tonight's action here at Las Vegas that could factor in for the points, by the way, as this season wraps up.
Oh, it certainly could. And you think about a lot of drivers who would typically be up here in the top split that have since hung up the wheel, myself included, that the top split continues to dwindle just a little bit down on the I rating necessary to qualify for this race. But that certainly doesn't mean that any of these second or third split drivers that maybe we haven't talked about here on the broadcast week in and week out don't have their own shot to end up in the top 20 come season's end.
There were 10 splits for this round for specific numbers. Change for P5. Eddie Kerner now passing his team on the outside. Will Norton also following suit. Everyone's starting to freight train Jake Matheson up on the top line.
Yeah, and this is what happens, especially when you get put down on that bottom lane, is everyone starts diving up to that high side, and they can easily pin that driver on the bottom, forcing them to lose momentum up off the corner and forcing them to stay low. As you see, he loses another spot there to Anthony Burrows, and now he's side by side with Jarrett Lieber. So he goes from inside the top 5, now barely hanging on to a top 10 spot as they're getting really dicey there, nice and tight right there entering turn 3, as Lieber gets a little loose on his outside. But once again, if you get pinned down to that bottom, it's really hard to make up momentum and hold on to your spot. So Matheson's going to try and hang on here on the outside of Lieber as they head down into 1.
See Femi Olot also in this grouping as well. Finlayson trying to follow through. Gonzalez along with Bozer looking to follow through. Those trucks are picking up pace and quickly here, Blake. Some of those Total Advantage Motorsport trucks.
They certainly are, and we were talking about in pre-race that they were a team that have consistently been up at the front of the field. Really, it was Richmond that I really started to notice their long-run speed, and since then, they've just been, it's been the same teams up at the front of the field the last couple of weeks. These guys have just really figured it out with what the builds that iRacing has brought out, and whatever they found on these trucks has certainly worked to their advantage. As I'm looking at the battle for now, the 10th position, first side-by-side battle on the racetrack, it's Michael Gonzalez, another Total Advantage Motorsports entry, making his way by on the bottom side of the 14 of Michael Finlayson as they're side-by-side. And Michael, I'll throw this question to you. I wasn't exactly sure how well that middle groove would work to be able to pass on, but it looks like not only have you been able to pass there, but you can make it awfully hard, as you mentioned earlier, on that truck beneath you to try to make their way by.
Yeah, for me, usually it's always been that first seam. So essentially the middle lane is where you want to be looking for to line up as you go through turns 1 and 2. And that's able to carry the momentum through the corner and to be able to just make sure you keep your tires on it. As you see that Finlayson uses it perfectly and gets around and keeps that spot ahead of Gonzalez there in 10th. But yeah, just the biggest thing I'm seeing is that I'm surprised that it's an advantage in 3 and 4. Usually the preferred line in 3 and 4 is that bottom lane, but the way that it's been looking so far, looks like it's been able to hold on for that driver on the outside and just keep the momentum going through the corner. As you see, Alan Bowes is going to follow Michael Finlayson through there and now be side-by-side with Michael Gonzalez down into turn 3. But only working lap 20 right now. It looks like the outside lane is going to be a factor here as we go throughout the rest of the race.
Chino trading Lapsevich, severe right side damage, just now has parked his truck. He was about 3 seconds off the pack. Everyone else, though, still running 33 trucks. Among some of the things that can happen, though, throughout a season, Blake, is driver changes in terms of where they align. A couple of them just shuffling around prior to this race, apparently, as there's a shuffle for the race lead. Wilson finally making the move up at the front of the field on Honeycutt. Honeycutt trying to get the squeeze. Wilson looking to try and make the move for the lead.
and he's not going to be able to do it off of 4. And this is what we were talking about. Generally, you've seen it a lot of these mile-and-a-half tracks that you have to defend low. You can't give up that low line. Atlanta comes to mind. It's a race that I participated in this top split, about how crucial it was to be on the bottom. Here at Vegas, it seems like that middle groove really comes into play, and you see that move for the lead for Steven Wilson is not only going to bump him back outside the race lead. Mitchell DeJong has now come into the picture. He's moved up into the second spot, and now he's going to try to take a crack at Caden Honeycutt.
And that's one of the risks, I think, here, Michael, in terms of some of these passes. If you don't time it up perfectly and don't get the pass to work, you can potentially get taken advantage of right there. What's your opinion on that, and try to time up the passes properly?
Yeah, it's really important, especially when you got to know who's around you, especially if they're all bunched up on top of you, like we saw right there with Steven. He went for the pass, but he had DeJong right there on his bumper, so he was able to take advantage when he did start to get a little tight there and push up throughout the corner. But now that they're all single filed out for the first 3, it's really important that they just try to file in right now and just figure out their passes. But if you're further back, like I say, Eddie Kerner, back and forth place, or in that train right there, if you get your pass wrong, like we saw what happened to Jake Matheson, you could easily lose 4 or 5 spots right off the bat.
Corey looking to the train for 5th. The truck right in front of them, Eddie Kerner, took away P4. The point I was just about to make there, Blake, though, is there was some team shuffling around. That can happen throughout a season. 2 drivers changing teams tonight. Lining up with dead zone. Eddie Kerner in that 4th position. Also lined up, we are hearing, amongst the middle pack at the moment, Jarrett Liebert, who is currently in P7.
Well, and that's just one thing that is evolving as these teams continue to go throughout their season. That's just a natural...
Here comes the lead.
Natural...
Pardon me there. On the outside, Mitchell DeJong just took away the race lead. DeJong now at the point for VRS.
And DeJong able to take the lead, and I don't think that's a sight, Justin, that many of these drivers wanted to see, because of how difficult it has been to move by DeJong when he has been the dominant driver of the race. We have seen him a couple of times on the ovals. Richmond, he was awfully strong before getting caught up in an accident. Of course, you mentioned the Roval as well. He has Canadian Tire, I'm sure, circled for the next race out. But Mitchell DeJong, if you see him out front of an oval, that is not a good sign. And I can talk about this from experience. I remember when he was first getting into oval racing, some of the first races he ever did was actually here several months ago, back in 2019 in the fall, when the Cup Series was here at Las Vegas. He was running B fixed, A fixed, all those races, and he was dominating those. So this is a very comfortable racetrack for the driver.
Trying to pull away now by a couple tenths as Wilson still trying that middle line to try and fight back. That move, by the way, for the lead allowed Wilson to get on through and get past Honeycutt. Kerner is also quickly closing in. Kerner is actually the fastest truck on the racetrack. Michael, this could turn into a 4-truck battle in the next few moments, if not 5.
Indeed it could. As you mentioned, that 5th truck of Garrett Conrad, while he did have that slow start, he is able to hang on to those top 5 as they're slowly starting to edge away from the pack. As you see, they're now side-by-side back for 6 now, with Jarrett Liebert and Anthony Burrows going side-by-side. Liebert might get the slide job done on the exit, just got a little too loose there off the corner. But yeah, I mean, as long as they're still side-by-side right here, these front 5, as long as they're nose to tail like they are, should be easily be drafted away from the pack ahead. But yeah, like Liebert's still working that inside on Burrows, and finally might get the job done off the turn 4. Not quite. Just got a quarter panel alongside. But yeah, this is a nice little battle right here from 7th on back.
Here's the thing, though. They've lost a little bit of time, about 8 tenths to the group in front. 2 wide, 4 rows deep. Jarrett Liebert clears himself right across the nose of his former teammate. Olot still stuck on the bottom. Will Norden trapped up at the top. Gonzalez also in this grouping, as well as several other trucks. And how frustrating is this as a driver, Michael, to try and get your way through this pack without burning up your tires while making sure you also don't lose too much time?
I mean, it's really difficult. I mean, I'm looking at Michael Gonzalez there in 10th in the total advantage, the Toyota Tundra, and I'm just thinking to myself, like, in that situation, I would just be sitting there, riding it out, trying to hope my line moves forward, and if it doesn't, just try and find a way out. As you see, that Norton almost looked to go underneath of Anthony Burrows as they're still battling side by side ahead of him. But if you're just stuck in the back, like the total advantage trucks there on the inside of Bose and Gonzalez, I'd just be hanging right there, just waiting for my tires to come in, and hopefully these guys will start falling off here. But as you see, Femi Olat might actually get ahead of this group, and he does. So now he slides him up into 7th.
So now single file for the first 2 trucks. Still, though, side by side, a couple rows deep. Norton able to finally clear as well to get himself up to P8.
Oh, trouble here on the back straightaway. One car is in the wall. It is the 25 machine from Nexus and Will Norton. Somehow they stacked them up. There's big damage on that machine for Will Norton. A couple of other trucks may be involved in that as well. Norton got loose, got shoved into the outside retaining wall, perhaps by a teammate, but somehow, Justin, they're able to collect that up and avoid some further catastrophe there.
Talk us through this here, Michael, because he was really squirrely off too from that.
Yeah, you should see the replay up on the screen. It just look, he just stepped out just a little bit on the exit, and if he tried to hold it throughout the corner, but once you just try to overcorrect and those front tires start re-gripping up again, you're going to immediately into the wall. And it did help that he had Anthony Burrows on his quarter panel, so that might have helped him get a little bit looser as he sat there. But yeah, he just overcorrected just the slightest bit, and it's unfortunate the tires gripped up the way they did, and he went right in the wall.
Bose has minor damage from that. Significant damage, though, for Derek Justice. A bit on the right front and some left rear damage. I was about to swing over to the battle up in the front, though, because Wilson has been applying the pressure on Mitchell DeJean, and we're starting to approach the pit window. Michael, how do you play this strategy tonight for this race?
At 134 laps, I'd be wanting to split it into 2, roughly about like 46, 45-ish laps, somewhere about there. But if you want to stretch it out, lead some laps, you're more than welcome to do that. And you might lose some times out of that, especially if you're towards the back and hopefully wait for a caution. But I think the 2 stops the way to go. You want to get there right on the dot, just that way you can make sure you're ahead of everybody, especially if you're DeJong. As you see, Steven Wilson starting to poke out underneath there as they head into turn 3.
Eddie Kerner also trying to peek out and try and still make a move on Caden Honeycutt. Looking right now, they've also pulled away from Conrath a little bit by a few tenths. Kerner just can't get clear here, Blake. He's been trying to pass them now for several laps.
Well, and that's just one of those things. It's frustrating as a driver when you know that or at least you believe you're faster than the truck in front of you. And, of course, you get to them. We know that catching somebody is one thing and passing them is another. And with how strong this middle lane continues to be as the rubber continues to be laid down here at Las Vegas, it just makes it really difficult to try and make a pass. We saw a little bit earlier, Steven Wilson, he tried to make a move for the lead, didn't work, but now he's going to try it once again. They're side by side on the front straightaway, battle for the lead. Mitchell DeJong and Steven Wilson as they head into 1.
Wilson tries to floor it down the bottom. Has to let it roll. DeJong with the good run up in the top once again. Nearly scrapes the safer barrier. Drag race back down the back straightaway, coming to 98 laps to go. These two have a 0.6 of a second buffer for this fight.
Yeah, it's still with the halfway up the door on DeJong. Steven still hang on that bottom line. Looks like he's just a little loose there through 3. It looks like he's able to roll the bottom pretty well compared to most trucks that we've seen tonight. But as you know, DeJong is still riding in that high side, so that's where the momentum's been all night. You see right there, Steven decides, I'm going to relax, try to regroup, maybe try again in a few laps as he files in right behind DeJong and still in 2nd place. But yeah, it just looks like as though that those total advantage trucks can really roll that bottom really well, even if they're underneath somebody.
Perfect example, go back to P5. You've seen the side-by-side of the backdrop. The biggest move of the race is Femi Olat. He's now up to the top 5, and he just looked like he rolled that bottom near perfectly, Blake.
He certainly did, and I think his new teammate right behind him, and Jarrett Liebert, is doing the same thing. Looks to be awfully strong here late in the run as these total advantage trucks are really flexing their muscles here at about lap 40 of the run. And Justin, you were talking about it a little bit earlier. We are starting to get close to that fuel window. Of course, these drivers 134 laps right now as we continue to work under the green flag. We haven't seen a caution flag just yet, but also one other thing to keep in mind is the tire limits that these drivers have. They have 3 fresh sets sitting on pit road right now, which obviously the way this is working, if we were to get a caution flag right now, that everybody would still be good with 2 other sets of tires. But that's obviously one thing that has been introduced into Road to Pro this season, or at least mid-season rather, is the addition of these tire limits.
Yeah, indeed, and it hasn't popped up on the strategy quite yet. We're taking a look towards the battle as well for P3 as the leaders try and single file it a little bit. The drivers currently are still shuffling the way about, but on that tire mention, you hit about there. Michael, how does that factor in how you strategize as a driver and as a team for how you play the race?
It's really important when it comes down to it. I mean, obviously, you want to be the driver that has the freshest set there at the end of the race, as you're still watching the battle between Eddie Kerner and Caden Honeycutt for that third spot. But yeah, it's just really important that you have that extra set at the end there, because I mean, that's the difference between you getting at least a few tenths advantage over somebody else throughout the end of the race there. But yeah, I mean, you just want to stretch the tires out as much as you can without using too many sets up before the end of the race. But yeah, there's still pretty strong battle here between Kerner and Honeycutt, as Honeycutt looks as though he's going to lose out right there as Kerner slides it up in front of him in the middle of the corner.
Kerner now parks the bus. Honeycutt with a good run. Gives him a shot to the back bumper. Ola now trying to take advantage. Lieber now trying to push him to the bottom side. And now all the teammates trying to freight train the Nexus truck. Again, the window expected to open in 5 laps, mind you.
Going to open in 5 laps, but this is a point in this run. If maybe you don't feel like you have a good handling race truck, you just want to get to the bottom, get in line, and not have to worry about potentially coming down pit road in a bit of an interesting scenario like you see with Honeycutt right here on the high side as he almost gets into the wall off of the exit of turn 2. But Honeycutt, he just needs to find a way to get to the bottom, get single file, and then he can start to figure out where his pit or where he can get down to pit road, because obviously, Justin, this is a very, very difficult racetrack to pit under green flag conditions with the banking change, how long it is, how easy it is to lock up the tires. This is a hard one to do.
Yeah, several times here. I've seen trucks hit a bump going into arc into the pit lane, Michael, and spin out. How tricky is this pit entry for you if you're a driver, as Olot just swapped positions up in front of this group?
Yeah, I mean, the pit entrance, the biggest thing is just trying to get it slowed down on the banking before you get to that transition. Because as soon as you get to that transition, it can easily unstabilize the car. As you see our first taker down to the pit lane for the green flag cycle to begin. And that's going to be the 81 of Adam Gilliland. He's going to be the first one down on pit lane to start the green flag cycle here. But yeah, the biggest thing is just trying to get it slowed up on the banking before you do transition down to the apron, because it's a big balance changer as soon as you go down there. And then once you get down towards the yellow line, it's really easy to lock up, as Blake mentioned.
Pit road speed limit as well, 50 miles an hour here, as you see Gilliland getting his left side tires. This will already pin him down a lap, but a bold undercut of at least a few laps here to open up the strategy window for this race. All the leaders currently separate inside the top 10 by about 3 seconds for reference sake on the racetrack, as there's a second, third, and fourth truck. Hogan, Hoff, Blackford are in.
You saw right there on your screen, Brian Blackford, a nice little lockup of what we were just mentioning. If you can hit it just right, you can find the way to maximize that speed, but that's an awfully close line that you're going to be towing, trying to get into pit road and not speed while attempting to do that as well. And of course, a 134-lap race, lap 44, 45 would be splitting it perfectly into thirds, and I think that's what you're going to see from a lot of these drivers as green flag pit stops are well underway. Looks like everybody gets off clean on this cycle. A couple more drivers enter pit road at the back half of it. As we continue to work, it's Donovan Strauss and Braden Buyos.
These drivers are on the mid-pack at this point. Several drivers also still trying to shuffle to that bottom. At this point, if you're in these late groups, Michael, when do you come down to pit? Because it may get you at least a couple seconds on track. The fall-off is already 2 seconds.
Yeah, that's the biggest question, is always trying to decide when you want to pit, especially with how much fall-off there is. It's always crucial to make sure you're on top of it, depending on where everyone else wants to pit. But obviously, I mean, personally, I want to be the one to pit after the first person does, because if there's someone behind me, like let's say Steven Wilson pits right here, and Mitchell DeJong doesn't, DeJong will definitely be down the next lap. But I never want to be the first person pitting. I always want to be the one that pits the lap after everyone pits. So that way, not only do I get a tire advantage, but I do cover off that undercut as best as I can.
As all the pit stops have started, by the way, DeJong and Wilson have started right away. Pit calls coming over the radio from several of the drivers in the lead groups. Honeycutt, Lieber, among some of the other drivers, indicated they're coming down in the next couple laps. Conrath as well expected to come in. Freenosh also expected to come in this time by and make that hard cut to the left.
Well, and a couple of these calls coming out a bit late, you really have to see if everybody's going to give each other room. Looks like, we nearly had a collision back in the pack getting off of turn 3. I believe it was, it looked like a pink truck. I don't think it was Derek Justice, but it was a couple of trucks back here in the pack. It was Drew Freenage. A couple of close calls here in the back of the pack. And this is, I guess, the detriment of green flag pit stops, if you will, Justin, that if a caution were to come out and guys like Blackford and a bunch of other trucks that have already pit, you're going to be in a bad situation if the yellow flag comes out, as we see our race leader and Wilson lock them up as they enter pit road.
And it looked like Wilson indicated he wanted to come in first, but then DeJong was able to counter quickly. That means Famiola currently a race leader. Kerner, Justice, LaPrade, Near. The only drivers not to take service quite yet in this two-stopper.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how these pit cycles play out here. Let's see how the cycles go and who's going to have the better pit stop among the leaders. You see DeJong still taking service, but obviously Famiola likes the way his truck is driving, as he's going to extend his stint for just another lap or two, as now he finally comes down. So our last group of leaders are coming down with Famiola, Eddie Kerner, and Derek Justice. So the race on pit road right there goes to Mitchell DeJong. He's going to still maintain that same gap there on top of Steven Wilson. And then right behind them is going to be Alan Bowes and Michael Gonzalez. So that's a very beneficial stop for those two, as they're able to close up the gap to the leaders just a little bit. But here come the people who pitted the lap earlier.
So everyone has ducked on down, except for this man, because he's undercut everybody. That's why Yolen gained 3 seconds to take the net race lead for the moment. So this is a bold call. Remember, he's got about 6-7 lap older tires here, Blake.
Well, he's got 5 or 6 lap older tires. He came down on about lap 44.
Yes.
Would have been splitting it up in thirds, but I don't really view this as a true undercut, as we still continue to cycle through, and eventually once we cross the stripe, we see a couple of trucks exit pit road. He has the lead, but I don't think this is that deep of an undercut. It's not like he pitted, 10 laps out of the cycle to try and get up here. This is a good strategy decision, I think, from Adam Gilliland, just because, obviously you get the track position if you get a yellow flag, but obviously he's splitting it up so close to thirds anyway. So it's not like he's taking a big gamble by doing this. So a very veteran move from the veteran driver.
So the gaps have separated a little bit. Gilliland in the lead by now, 1.3 seconds. DeJong, Wilson, Liebert, Hogan. Now your top 5. Make it Honeycutt in P5. Let's follow on board with John. Quick and go side by side. You're watching Podium Esports for coverage of the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series from Las Vegas.
We are back at North Wilkesboro, North Carolina, where the field is rolling out for the start of today's 400-lap race on this .625-mile racetrack. And just as the field comes around turn number 4, the sunshine peeks through, helping warm things here. On the outside, the green flag flies, and the first Union 400 Winston Cup race from North Wilkesboro is underway. Everybody nicely through turns number 1 and 2 as Bill Elliott has the lead, and Dale Earnhardt has jumped into second position, followed by Benny Parsons and Bobby Allison. Will be his 24th career win. Dale Earnhardt wins the first Union 400 at North Wilkesboro.
Welcome back as the battle for the lead starting to intensify. As expected, Gilliland losing the lead that time in the side-by-side. But DeJong, he's found his buddy that's been fighting with him this entire second half of the first stint, and now the start of the second stint. DeJohn and Wilson battling for the race lead. Justin Prince alongside Blake McCandless, Michael Corellia, Brian Bauer in the director's seat for tonight's action. These drivers have been connected to the hip, it seems, for about 20, 30 laps now, Blake, for this lead.
Well, and now Wilson going to look high. What's he going to do with it? He's just going to tuck back in line and just ride this thing out with DeJong. The one thing that I think Wilson's smart enough to recognize is he and DeJong both have race-winning trucks. There's no doubt about that. The one thing you don't want to do is battle each other too hard, allow those drivers behind you to gain a little bit of time on them. So I think Wilson just biding his time. I mean, good grief. How many times have we talked to this guy in our post-race interviews? He seems to be a regular fixture on the broadcast every single week. So I think he also knows that as well. He wants to win. He's looking now, but he's just going to keep it in line with DeJong for now. But I think Wilson's just being smart here, maintaining here. You never know when a yellow flag could potentially come out. So Wilson and DeJong just being smart, not allowing a couple of drivers behind them to catch him, which, how about we give this guy a shout out? Jarrett Liebert has worked his way up into the third spot through these green flag pit stops. I believe he has the tires to keep moving forward.
Yes, just made the pass on the outside. In fact, Caden Honeycutt doing the same. Currently separate about 1.7 seconds from the rest of the group of trucks. So Gilliland already shuffled back to the end of the top 5. Bo's the next truck behind. But the gap, about 1.3 seconds. It seems, though, that these dead zone / total advantage motorsport trucks have the pace to close in on the long run, Michael.
Yeah, and as Blake mentioned it, their long run pace has been, if not the best in the field compared to everybody else alongside Mitchell DeJong and that Team VRS truck. But yeah, they've definitely shown the paces. Now we have Steven Wilson up in the second, Jarrett Liebert in third, Alan Bowes in sixth, and Femi Ola in ninth. So there's a whole slew of trucks that are up running towards the front. It clearly shows their pace with how Steven Wilson has been pressuring Mitchell DeJong throughout this entire race.
And he seems to still want to try and get by him. The problem has been he's been trying the middle line, allowing DeJong to move to the white line in 1 and 2. But every time he starts to build up a run, just seems to not be able to get close enough quite yet, realistically, Blake, to actually be able to send it for a dive while being able to complete the pass. Because remember, if he doesn't clear them, they burn up both their tires, and he ends up losing time to everyone else catching up.
Exactly. You have to time it right and know that when you make the move at the correct time, that it's going to be successful. And obviously the price to pay for that is that you both wear out your tires. But there is a little bit of a pack here just outside the top 10 as they continue to sort things out through these green flag cycles. It was Michael Gonzalez, Eddie Kerner, Derek Justice, who has now made his way up into the 11th position. There's about a pretty nice group of about 6 trucks right here. So they're all being led right now by Isaac Gann, who makes his way by Adam Gilliland. And let's talk about Isaac Gann for a second. This is a driver who took the first couple of weeks off the season. He was somebody that was was the championship points leader last year in Road to Pro. And he said, you know what? I'm just not having fun. I'm not going to run the rest of the season, and just decided to call it quits. I think he still finished in the top 40 in points despite missing quite a few weeks. But he's he's been running mostly in second split, has just made his way up the top with a couple of his North Force teammates, and he has been bad fast. And he was another one of those drivers, along with Derek Justice, that was telling me, oh, I don't know about this. I think we're slow. Well, you can see right behind him on your screen, Derek Justice right back there outside the top 10. So anytime that this North Force gang says that they're struggling, Justin, I'm just not going to believe him anymore, because I think they're lying to me.
Yeah, Justice, despite the damage, he's been gaining position slowly but surely. It's now 11th, where he is on the racetrack, and he was the quickest driver last time by, despite being in this whole gaggle of trucks, to say the very least.
Yeah, he's definitely in that little pack as they're working their way past Adam Gilliland. But yeah, these guys were the ones who stayed out just a little bit longer towards the end with Eddie Kerner and Derek Justice, and they were the last few onto pit lane. So don't be surprised if they work their way up through the next few trucks here in just a little bit. That's being led by Femi Olat, who's in 7th, who's now chasing down what the aforementioned Isaac Gann as they work their way down the backstretch. And I want to talk about Femi for just a second here, and he's just trying to work his way back up from his battle that he had last week at Dover. A disappointing finish to the way he ended as he had contact on a late race restart that pushed in his front nose, as you see him now working underneath Isaac Gann for that 6th spot, as he's now bringing that truck to the front. But this is definitely a performance that he needs to make sure he is solidified into that top 20, as he's about roughly 100 points out. And so a solid finish today, even where he's at right now, would be doable to get him into the top 20.
And this would be absolutely huge if he can get himself back up to the front. Remember, has about 1 lap fresher tires than John Wilson, 2 lap fresher tires than Liebert, along with Honeycutt. It is one of the quickest trucks in clean air on the track at the moment. But halfway this upcoming time by 67 laps in at the stripe. Let's take this moment as we are about to cross the halfway point of tonight's race to bring you the iRacing Midway Race Break, brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online simulation developed from the beginning as a centralized racing competition service. iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series with racing from the Australian Supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. The leaders up at the front, Mitchell John, Steven Wilson, they've been the kings of the field, have ran away by 1.8 seconds from the rest of the group. Jared Liebert's in third with Bose in P4. Honeycutt's in fifth with Femi Olan in sixth. Eddie Kerner just took P7 away, this time by from Isaac Genn in the North Force truck. Rounding the top 10, Derek Justice, who takes away a spot from his teammate, along with Michael Gonzalez.
11th will be Garrett Conrad. 12th is Adam Gilliland. 13th running is Ryan Doucette. Struggled in qualifying, but has really stayed around that 13th spot the entire race. Jake Matheson runs in the 14th spot. 15th, as it shuffles around, is Breyer LaPrade. 16th is Alec Martinez. 17th is Drew Friednage. 18th, Garrett Baines. 19th is Anthony Burrows. And how about it? He's always marching up through the field. Casey Tucker rounds out the top 20.
Brian Mercurio is starting in 21st here as he runs behind Casey Tucker just a few tenths back. Donovan Strauss is in 22nd. Brandon Half in 23rd. Boyd Hogan in 24th. He's fell back after that cycle of pit stops where he was up in the top 5, but now he's finding himself back in 24th. Michael Finlayson, we talked about him earlier as he's fighting for those top 15 running spots. He's now in 25th. Seth the Merchant, 26th. Blake Neer, 27th. Justin Lisabee, 28th. Dylan C. Jones back in 29th, and Braden Buyos back in 30th.
31st spot at the moment on the racetrack, Will Norton. He's got significant damage, 4 seconds off the next truck. Brian Blackford with a clean truck, but older tires, is also falling behind him in 32nd. Carson Hocevar is 23 seconds back and struggling loose at the back of the field. And your only DNF is Traden Lapsevich. He ended up hitting the wall, and lap 19 had lost touch with the pack as well early on. This concludes tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break with over 170,000 drivers on the iRacing service and more than 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from. iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, visit iRacing.com today. Taking a look back at your leaders, and keep in mind the next couple of weeks could be very busy on the service. Cars Esports Tour goes to North Wilkesboro tomorrow night on July 22nd at 9 p.m. on Podium Esports' Twitch. The GameWorks Racing Series in action on the 26th as well. That is Sunday at 8 p.m. as well as the All-Star Race for Sim 500 at Charlotte Motor Speedway on July 27th. Don't forget about the Coke race you're going to be taking part in, Michael, at Michigan. That's on July 28th.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting race for sure. It'll be tightly packed up as with this new package we have. It's going to be really on top of each other throughout the entire race. But yeah, looking forward to it, especially trying to rebound after our struggles there at New Hampshire in the number 15 Jim Beaver Esports Ford Mustang. But yeah, hopefully we're just looking to turn our luck around from our last race at Michigan.
As these leaders still continue to scrap here, though, have to ask you, in your opinion here, Blake, what's it going to take for one of these drivers to run away from one another? Because it seems Wilson and DeJean are dead even on pace. The thing is, Wilson tried to undercut him, remember that first pit stop window? DeJean was able to still dive into the pit lane late to go with him.
Well, and we know how important track position is in this series. You just think back to Darlington, the battle that we saw between Will Norton and Derek Justice. I think that was a race where Justice had the pace to try and get by Norton, and because Norton had the track position, was able to hold him off for a better part of 20 laps. He ended up winning that race. Now, of course, this isn't Darlington. There's a little bit more room here at Las Vegas, but it's still very difficult to pass on the inside. So it's going to be a game of cat and mouse. And, oh, by the way, Femi Olat, who is running down our race leaders, he may become part of this equation as well. He's about a tenth quicker each time by, as he's running about 2.5 seconds behind the leader. So it'll be a little bit before he catches up. But of course, they can become part of it as well. Also, Alan Bose is directly behind him, another total advantage truck running in fourth.
It's become a choo-choo train. By the way, Michael, the top 10 C6 total advantage trucks, kind of similar to what we've seen last round, when it was a majority of the Nexus trucks along with total advantage inside the top 10 at the end of the race.
Yeah, definitely. Those two teams have been battling up towards the front throughout most of this Road to Pro series. But yeah, it seems like every week they seem to flip-flop back and forth. As now this week, it seems like Total Advantage has the upper hand upon Nexus, as you see, as we mentioned, 6 of the top 10 or from Total Advantage. But yeah, this is though just like back and forth these two teams go. Obviously, they are two of the biggest teams on the sim, but I mean, when it comes down to it, they both have a lot of pace and they have a lot of speed, as they're showing tonight throughout the field.
Still looking up at Wilson. He has been in second a majority of this race so far tonight. And Deshaun now started to actually match the line almost, it seems here, Blake. This time he moved up to the middle line in 1 and 2 and nearly drifted up into the wall.
And now you start to see, again, we're nearing, or at least starting to get within about 10 or 15 laps of when we'll start to see green flag pit stops once again. And there is a bit of handling issues, I guess, going on with these trucks. Honestly, not near as much as we thought. As I'm taking a look at our track temperature right now, we still have 65 degrees, which is what we saw at the beginning of this race. But how about the track temperature falling there about 4 or 5 degrees, which, again, just insane to think that a track temperature in July in Las Vegas, Nevada is 97 degrees, but that's just what we have to run with tonight. And it's, I think, providing a lot of stability for these race trucks, although some of them, of course, probably expected it. And, you know, they're going to either play on the tight side or play on the loose side when they were expecting these colder temperatures.
It's where you work your connections, let's put it that way. As the gap is kind of equalized, the tires have equalized between the top two and Olot, by the way. Olot is now even out at 2.6 seconds to 2.4 seconds back to the next group of trucks. Bose is still in that train. Honeycutt, meanwhile, is bleeding spots at the back end of that top 5 train. Liebert and Carter and Justice and Gonzalez and Gann have all wanted to pass on by this entire stint. And
it looks as though Caden's just starting to struggle here towards the end of this stint here as they're working lap number 80 as we cross the start-finish line right there. But yeah, one thing I've noticed is that Caden just likes as it goes through turns 1 and 2, as though his truck just wants to push up on the exit there, as he's just ahead of this battle behind him of Eddie Kerner, Michael Gonzalez, and Derek Justice, who's starting to find his way up into the issue. But looks as though those Nexus trucks are just starting to push just a little bit here as the run goes on.
And as a driver, in terms of your setup philosophy, as Liebert gets a little bit loose on the bottom side and is able to save it as Gonzalez peeks to the outside in that grouping, what's your preferred balance for a track such as Las Vegas to try and make sure you are not too loose but not too tight?
Well, the biggest thing is when it comes into turn-in is you want to just be pretty secure. You want the rear end to do a lot of the work and then have the front end do most of the work on the exit of the corner. But it's all about trying that balance, to find the balance, in the center of the corner, because that's where you're able to plant the power. It's where you can adjust how you're driving and how you want to take the corner as you progress through it. As you see here, as we're riding out with Eddie Kerner, still looking back at this battle here on track. But it's all about entry for me, mostly entry and center, because that sets up how you're going to take the corner. And it really shows at the later run, as you see Caden Honeycutt ahead of him, still pushing up on exit. So it looks as though he's struggling for that center turn.
You see Kerner now up for grabs for Derek Justice, although Honeycutt trying to dive it off the corner in 3 and 4. Justice, though, not able to put the power down quite yet. Take away the spot for the 98 machine. Have to give credit, though, to some of the drivers we talked about who have moved up to top split action. We've seen Gonzalez make his top split debut last time. We've seen some other competitors make their debuts tonight, such as the 33 for Grit Motorsports, their first appearance in top split action in 2020 in Road to Pro action. Others like Seth the Merchant returning back to action as well tonight. And many others, all trying to get the most points they can and the highest top split level.
And that's why these drivers, grind their iRating away to be in this position, to be able to try and get as many points as possible. There's no points up for grabs more than up here in the top split each and every Road to Pro week. Of course, we mentioned earlier, you can still find a path into the top 20 through second, through third, through the fourth splits. But of course, if you want the greatest amount of points possible, you have to come up and run with the best of the best. And, there are a couple drivers that even throughout the year, they may take a week off, but they'll come back charging for the next one.
Take a look at Blake Neer right now in 24th. He's been losing some pace as this run's gone on. Several of the teams, mind you, such as Neer's group, Boyd Hogan's group, and others, they put in thousands upon thousands. How many? A group of 3 drivers, mind you, for a part of Bobby Dale Earnhardt Legacy Esports and that alliance with Slip Angle Motorsports, put in a combined total of 2,500 laps over the span of a week in preparation for this race alone. That's how much work that group tried to put in here, Michael, to make sure they could try and get back on the pace and somehow get inside the top 20. Casey Tucker right now is their highest driver in that alliance.
Yeah, and obviously after the performance they had at Dover, you want to rectify as many issues as you can. And it looks as though they're still trying to find that curve that way they can find some more performance. As you see, Casey Tucker is riding into that 19th spot. But yeah, it's once you're behind the 8 ball, it's really hard to get back on top of it. You really have to try some out of the box kind of adjustments and try to see what you can change to it based off the philosophy that you have at the current time. But it's just all about trying to find what's going to work and maybe even doing something you wouldn't think about doing.
Absolutely, as we're under 50 laps to go, coming up 47 to go, by the way, this time by. Up towards the front, the gap is starting to separate a little bit all of a sudden. They've started to pull away from Oldlat, who's lost about 6/10 the past few laps, but DeJohn has also pulled now about 2/10 from the second place truck and Wilson in this group.
Well, he's pulled away, but again, Wilson and DeJong running in lockstep. It is likely going to come down to who can get on and off of pit road. How can these crews help their drivers go up here and try to win this race with them running lockstep in this neck and neck? That's exactly what it's going to come down to. And we're approaching that window right here. It's going to be about 45 laps here in a couple of laps when a lot of these drivers are going to look to come down pit road. And that's going to be the question. The one thing that Wilson actually has here, and you often look for it as a driver. So when these drivers are going to come down pit road, they obviously can't wave their hand out the window like you would see in real life. They have to either type it in the chat or use the in-game communication system to bring their voice over the loudspeaker and say, well, hey, I'm going to pit. Well, Steven Wilson doesn't have anybody within about 2 seconds of his truck. So he can basically pit without telling anybody, and so DeJong could be totally caught off guard. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Steven Wilson try to pull that off in the next couple of laps. Last time, because there were traffic around him, you had to, post it and let everybody know so they don't run you over when you're entering pit road. But I would not be surprised if Steven Wilson just makes a random duck on a pit road. DeJong's not going to know it, and then Wilson is going to have the track position as long as he can have a good stop to get the lead after that pit stop.
And the spotter calls, I think, are about to be very crucial, especially in groups such as this, as well as that lead group. Make the line on the box for Steven Wilson. For comparison's sake, DeJohn has Leahy and Zelensky on his box to try and decide when those top 2 will come in. Many other teams, mind you, have spotters and strategists with them for tonight's race.
Yeah, and sometimes the strategists are really what's going to make the difference between understanding what you need for your pit stops and being able to spot you through what's going to happen throughout these cycles. As we hear, maybe some people might be hitting pit road sometime soon here. But yeah, just having that spotter, that guiding voice in your ear, let you know what's happening, is really crucial to being able to be on top of what's happening throughout the race, especially now as you try to play the strategy throughout the field. But I'm kind of shocked that no one's wanted to do the undercut as of right now. I'd expect a few people from the back who did start doing the undercuts to the first strategy, whether it be Adam Gilliland or Boyd Hogan, or maybe duck down the pit road. But it looks as though everyone's trying to hang on to their tires at this time.
We do have one who elected to come down, and it's the Grit Machine. In the 33, Brendan Hoff electing to come down off strategy, puts him 32nd on the ticker. Everybody else has stayed on the racetrack for the time being in what has become a strategy race, clean and green so far from the drop of the green. Blackford, by the way, also in at the air end of pit road just in front of the leaders. He was almost about to be lapped.
And a couple of trucks are going to keep coming down pit road. Again, I think this may be the lap or perhaps the next one. Do you see Steven Wilson make a move onto pit road? He still doesn't have a truck within over 2 seconds. It's nearly 3 seconds between he and the next truck. So look for Wilson here to try and undercut it, make a move that De Jong is not expecting. And oh, now De Jong, is he going to slow up? Yes, De Jong is going to have the advantage on track position as he pulls down pit road. He didn't let Wilson or anybody else know, and somehow he was able to pull it off with Wilson right behind him.
It almost looked like the way that he was taking the line, though, Michael, he at least had some sense that De Jong was thinking about it, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, once those guys start slowing down in the middle of the corner, you obviously want to make sure you try and get around them as best as you can, because as soon as you know there's a significant speed slower than what you are at the time, you know they're going to be coming down the pit road. But yeah, Steven was really quick to react there as he saw that De Jong was coming down, but now it becomes, when do you pit? Because De Jong is now still coming off pit road, as you see Steven Wilson flash by, but Steven's staying on the track there. They're electing for the overcut here. We'll see how beneficial that'll be, as maybe he sees him come down this time by. But yeah, we're watching Mitchell De Jong come off pit road, and that's one of the other crucial things is the pit road exit, because you can take that many different ways, especially with shortcutting it or doing the long way around like he did to maximize your speed off the exit. As we hear more drivers calling down the pit road, as we see Steven Wilson coming down.
We'll see it on the left side for the onboard. Wilson just got underneath speed limit. Jared Laber also ducking down amongst those grouping of drivers. Oldbot also coming down this time by. He gained net positions with that strategy, just had the tires even out. Remember, the fall off about 2.1 seconds. And say you have fresh tires, it's going to get scary for you.
Yes, it is, and that's one of the other things we have to look at is you see De Jong splitting the middle. That's the other thing that's going to come into the equation here is De Jong on these laps where he has these fresh tires running into that traffic is going to slow him down immensely, and that's what Steven Wilson wants to hear from his spotter, is now I believe Steven Wilson has made his trip onto pit road.
Yeah, Wilson, as mentioned, did come down. Blake Neer's come down. Jones, Lisenby, Finlayson, Tucker, Kerner, Gonzalez all have ducked down, but look at the time. Last time by out of the lane, 31.8. He is flying. Keep an eye on that stopwatch. The fastest laps of the race have been in the 38s.
Yeah, and it's crucial to see how he picks up this pace right here as he's catching up to Brian Blackford to put him a lap down effectively once they cycle back around. But yeah, still staying out there is Alan Moses. Actually, now as soon as I say that, he comes down to pit road. So now we're finally getting down to the back end of this green flag cycle, and we're looking back towards Mr. De Jong, and he's got a significant gap over Steven Wilson. Even though Steven stayed out those 2 laps, he's got roughly about half the back straightaway, if not more, of gap back to Steven Wilson. So even though he has 2 laps fresher tires, it'll be interesting to see if he can make up that gap or not. But that's a long way for Steven to make up here in these closing laps.
Yeah, and this is the risk, Blake. We've seen Oldbot try it. Here's the difference. Oldbot came out with traffic. Wilson, for the most part, has some clean space. No traffic outside of lap cars to deal with here. The question is going to be, will the tires equalize before he gets to them?
Well, and, you know, this is something that I watched probably some of the best in the business to do this. This was a couple of months ago when the Coca-Cola 600 was running. You saw this a couple of times. Malik Ray and Casey Kerwin running races against each other in the Coke 600, and Ray was doing the same thing that Wilson would do. He would wait on Kerwin to pit, go a couple laps longer. Even though it seemed as though he was giving up that time, he would come charging on the fresh tires, take advantage of some of the draft that, I mean, obviously you have it in the Cup car, you have it in the trucks as well. And with that draft and the fresh tires, it was able to take away some of that detriment that dirty air is, and it would actually work out for the driver that came in later. But I just don't know if Wilson can make up this much time, especially because De Jong has draft in front of him. Wilson doesn't. It's going to be really, really close to see what Wilson can do. That last time by De Jong, a 31.356. Wilson, 31.104. So he is going to run him down, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough.
35 laps to go. All the trucks have come down to pit. DeMercher was the last truck to elect to come down. Gonna be Oldbot Curley P3. Jared Labert is in P4. And Gilliland, He tried a bit of a less undercut, just got past in this grouping a little bit. Gonzalez just took the spot on the timing, and for P5, Kerner in this grouping trying to also pass by Gilliland. Alan Bowes just behind these drivers as well. Should note that Brandon Brewers, who is in that 10 machine for Horizon, is a lap down on the racetrack. In fact, 2 laps down at the moment.
Yeah, and he's still sitting behind Eddie Kerner there, as you see Kerner and Gonzalez battling for those 5th and 6th positions. But those two have been glued to each other throughout the entire night. Once they got up towards the front, they've been literally sitting on each other's back bumper for the longest time. And now these two are tandem up here as they're coming off turn 4 to complete lap 101. They have a chance here to run down Jarrett Liebert, who's just a few tenths up ahead. But it'll be interesting to see who of the two will get the better of the end of it, and if behind them as well, if Alan Bowes can keep up, especially right in that 8th spot.
1 lap difference between Jared Liebert's tires and Gonzalez's tires. In this battle, by the way, separated by about 0.4 of a second amongst the trucks. Single file amongst these grouping of drivers. The top 10 separated now by 11.5 seconds. Slowly but surely, the gap coming down for Steven Wilson. These two on your bottom middle of your screen have been the dominant trucks. DeJean has led most of the laps tonight. Wilson has been in second since about lap 20. It's been that type of a night for those two organizations.
It has, and you know, it's just been a dominant display here by the Virtual Racing School, who of course has a team in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, perform well there, and obviously able to extend that here to Road to Pro. And you have to say the same thing with Total Advantage as well, their affiliation with Dead Zone, which supports a large portion of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series field. And it seems like that experience, that commitment to finding speed, even up there on the Cup level with the Cup cars, has translated well here to the trucks, as these teams have really figured it out here these last couple of races and shown a lot of speed.
There's been a lot of dominant teams this season. VRS has been good at some of the tracks. Nexus and Total Advantage has been good as well much of the season. Majority of those trucks are inside the top 10 as we approach 29 laps to go. Quick side-by-side, you're watching eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series action from Las Vegas Motor Speedway. Welcome back from the side-by-side. Justin Prince alongside Blake McCandless. Mike Arroyo with you. We also have Ryan Bauer in the director's seat for tonight's action. The production seat, as always, powered by Top Flight Computers. The top two, still Mitchell DeJean, Steven Wilson, Femi Olan in third, Bowes, Liebert, Gonzalez, Kerner, Honeycutt, Justice, and Gilliland are your top 10 at the moment. It's been an interesting race so far, and it's been green all the way so far. Just a little bit of contact for some trucks early on. Outside of that, there hasn't been really any physicality amongst the field.
No, there hasn't. Everybody's been relatively clean with it. I don't even know if there's really been that much contact. We saw Will Norton get in contact with the outside wall, but that was just his truck getting loose. So these drivers have done a really good job of keeping their trucks clean. Of course, we could get a late race caution, and we just throw all that out the window because I'm sure these guys will be breathing down each other's necks the rest of the way if that were to happen. But speaking of breathing down each other's necks, Steven Wilson starting to cut into that advantage from Mitchell DeJong that was once about 5 seconds. It's now down to 2.2, and Wilson has a lot of speed compared to De Jong that time. He cut another 2/10 out of his lead, and we still have, as you look on your screen, 25 laps to go. So if I'm doing my math correctly, Justin, 2/10 a lap with 25 laps to go, and he's behind 2 seconds. Steven Wilson has a shot to win this thing.
There's a chance, absolutely. It's down to about 1.9 or 1.8 seconds. Whenever they adjusted on that truck, it's actually looking really quick for this stint of the run. The problem is, he's got to pass by lap traffic. You see Will Norton with the damage after he got loose out of turn 2 early on. Blackford is also in between these lead trucks.
Yeah, but with the lap down truck of Brian Blackford there, he is also giving Steven Wilson a little bit of advantage there with the draft as he starts to run him down the backstretch, and you see him slide out of the way so that way Steven gives a chance to run down Mitchell De Jong. But yeah, that gave him a little bit of a draft there down the backstretch, so that's a little bit of advantage that might make the difference here at the end of these laps. As you see also with De Jong, he's got Will Norton behind him. While Will is a little bit damaged there, he can still give him that air push that De Jong needs to pull away from Steven Wilson. As you see that last time by, Mitchell De Jong ran a 32.431 second lap time compared to Steven Wilson's 32.226. So still 2/10 a lap, but that air push from Will Norton may still be helping Mitchell De Jong.
Gap is down to 1.5. A quick update, by the way, for second split action. That has a lot of points ramifications. Many of the drivers in the top 20 running in that split as well. Nick Shelton for Slip Angle Motorsports currently in the lead. Hansen, Blade Witt, Taylor Hurst, Vicente Salas inside the top 5 at around lap 93. One of the drivers, though, to keep an eye on for a point shakeup inside the top 20 with drops was Zach Nichols. He's contending for a top 20, but is 1 lap down in 21st spot. So by the end of the night, the top 20 may have a few drivers coming in and out of it.
And I think that's going to maintain through the rest of this year, as even anybody who followed the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series last season knows that this thing will come down to the very end, which will be at Phoenix or ISM Raceway this season, and it's going to be a slugfest until the end, and drivers are going to be, we're going to actually have a lot of drama on that final broadcast, guys, because all those drivers from about, 23rd, 25th, on up have a chance to make it in if somebody has trouble. And of course, all those drivers that are just above the cut line are going to need just enough to maintain their spot in the top 20. So it's going to be really interesting keeping up with all that. And then you have to throw into the mix that there are drivers in second and third split, so you don't even know when it ends where everybody's going to line up. So that's going to be quite something to see. Is now, once again, there you see Steven Wilson. Mitchell De Jong is getting much larger out his windshield.
And the track is continuing to cool on down, mind you, too, now to about, as you see, 92, 93 degrees. And that means a bit more grip in the corners, down to under 1.2. And now he's just about inside the draft here of Norton and Company.
Yeah, Wilson is still starting to reel at those trucks up ahead of him with that last time by. Another attempt taking out De Jong's lead. But as we do mention, the track is starting to cool off. That is generally tightens up the track overall. And we saw towards the end of the run there, Steve was struggling there with a little bit of a loose truck. So maybe the cooler track, the added rubber being put down, is actually helping him out here, especially with the tire advantage he has. So maybe that small minor detail might be able to play a factor into Steven Wilson catching up to these front two as we flash by to complete lap 115, now working 116 of 134 with a, once again, about a half tenth that time from Steven Wilson taking out of De Jong's lead.
Now he does get the draft, yes, down the straights, but there is the chance of aero push. Here's an interesting statistic, though. After the pit stops, when the lead was about 3 seconds, he closed 2 seconds in the span of 10 laps. Now it's at 25 to go. In the span of the past 8, he's closed up an additional second. So the pace continuing to start to pick up just a little bit more and more, Blake, as it's now under a second.
It is, and De Jong has probably one piece at his disposal to try to hang it off, and that is the lap traffic of Will Norton, who, despite his damage, has only gone 1 lap down. So actually pretty impressive for him, as he's got some pretty heavy right front fender damage to be able to hang on to that truck. But otherwise, Wilson is still getting off. He's a little bit loose there off of 4, but now he's able to catch the draft of of Norton and try to continue to run him down. Let's see what it is that time by. Oh, nearly dead even between the front two.
4/100s quicker last time by. Wilson now starting to baby the throttle, and this has been the difficult part. Once he gets within this range, it seems, and within striking distance of DeJong, it seems like he's just not been able to get the complete pull he's needed quite yet to make the run. What's it going to take for him to make this pass, especially with that dirty air factoring in the corners?
Well, the biggest thing is going to come down to just how he's going to set up the pass, especially with Will Norton still being in the way there. He's going to navigate not only Will, but also DeJong. So, first off, he has to catch him. So he's still got that 0.8 of a second gap there. But that dirty air is going to play a factor there, as the truck may not be handled the same way that you really wanted to behind somebody. And especially now that instead of being one truck of DeJong, you have the two of Norton and DeJong. That's an added truck there, more dirty air, more turbulent air in front of the nose of that Total Advantage Toyota Tundra. So Steve is going to have to navigate that, manage his tires, and be able to try and find a way to attack Mitchell DeJong here as we close down at the final 15 laps here.
Down to about 0.7 of a second. Third DNF now in the race. Boyd Hogan now done for the night. He was just at the very edge of being mathematically still within a shot tonight. In fact, one of the final drivers in that range with drops calculated. Carson Hocevar is also out of the race, by the way. Carson Hocevar missed the last race for the Slate of Nationals.
A big moment here off of 2. It was Briar LaPrade who got awfully loose and nearly looped it on the back straightaway. LaPrade, who was hanging on to 11th, he'll lose a handful of positions. Now back to, I believe, as it cycles up, it'll be 14th that he falls back to. He got very loose off of 2. The Burton Kligerman Esports driver trying all he could to hang on to his machine, but obviously the undercut starting to not pay dividends, as you'll see right here side by side with Ryan Doucette. He'll make it through the corner and just gets a little bit sideways right there. And he had to do a little bit of an overcorrect there to save that, but that'll lose him a handful of spots. That's about the biggest moment we've seen of this race, which, mind you, it isn't really that great. These drivers have been handling really well all night, so not too many of those to speak of.
Coming up 11 laps to go, by the way, and Norton did try and let Wilson on go, went all the way up to the wall, ended up letting him on go, so now it's just these two drivers to fight it out. 0.6 is the gap. 11 to go.
Yeah, and Steven Wilson, now he's got past Will Norton. He's now got his eyes dead set on Mitchell DeJong. And even though he did have a slower lap that time trying to navigate around Will Norton, he was still able to manage a decent gap there, only lost about half a tenth there. So now that it's just those two up front, we'll be able to see how competitive Steven will be on those one lap fresher tires and be able to see where he's going to want to set up the pass to try and go for the win here in the closing laps. But DeJong still looks pretty strong there. I thought he might be saving his tires there at the start of that run, as he was still losing about 0.2 laps there, to Steve Wilson at the start of the run. But that's when you want to save your tires the most, especially if you have a big gap like Mitchell DeJong has. You want to save on the front end of that run so you can really push towards the end and have something to fight off this charge for the win.
Gap is starting to even out a little bit. Under 10 laps to go. 9 laps this time by. It's between these two drivers if it stays green, and that's the big key. Wilson trying to cut to the apron this time. Gains about half a tenth. That time entering turn 1. That time by the stripe, he was about 1/10 of a second quicker. Nearly floored it all the way to the apex.
And you can see Wilson thinks he's done a good enough job of saving his tires. DeJong, that becomes the question for him, despite the fact that Wilson was running him down. How much tire is left in that BRS Toyota? Of course, he does have the option, and you'd think, well, he's just a sitting duck out here. It's a question of whether Wilson has the tires. DeJong does have control over how hard he's pushing. And, of course, he had the option to save his tires as well. Is that what caused Wilson to catch him so quickly and now kind of even out? We'll have to see. Is now 9 laps to go. Wilson cuts into it just a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough in the last 8 laps to get it done.
Coming up to 7 laps to go. And that dirty air again has just seemed to be that buffer point for Wilson all race long tonight. This time, though, he's not within a couple tenths. He's within that very difficult half a second to break on through if you're a driver, whether it's a Cup car, Xfinity car, or a truck. Dirty air is a major factor, and this bubble is something that can be a factor. It seems like he can't pop it, Michael.
Yeah, and once you get to that position, it's always the hardest part, is just trying to break through that bubble, as you mentioned, and try to get up towards the rear deck lid of the truck ahead of you. But that last time by, DeJong was able to pull out a little bit bigger of a gap. And one thing I noticed with the way he is he had a little bit of a moment there, a little bit of looseness in the middle of the center of the corner, but that may lend to an advantage here from Steven. But one thing I did notice between the difference in lines, especially on the turns 3 and 4 end of the speedway, is that DeJong was electing to cut down to the center of the corner later than Steven Wilson is. So not only is that allowing him to have a straighter exit off the corner, but that's putting that dirty air on Steven's nose as they come off the exit of the corner, which allows that truck to push just that little bit more on the exit of the corner.
Wilson, though, able to charge into 3 and 4. Bit of a bobble off the corner, gaining a half a tenth there, but with 5 laps to go, it's just under 5/10. Wilson may need a little bit of luck here at this point, Blake.
I think you're right. I think DeJong did a masterful job of saving his tires just enough. We know Wilson has the better Goodyear Eagles, but is it going to be enough to run down DeJong? It doesn't look like it at the moment, as there's still some pretty heavy battling out here outside the top 10, around the top 10 rather, but DeJong coming to 4 to go, still looking strong. Wilson charging, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough to run him down. Oh, it's nearly a tenth that time.
Fastest truck, by the way, was Olot, who is on the same tire lap as Steven Wilson, but 2 seconds back of all this. So the pace is picking up a little bit for some of the fresher tires at this moment. It's just been the matter of that dirty air, but the caution is out. Caution is out, 11th place. Alec Martinez gets turned around, and this changes the whole complexion of this race.
Indeed it does. Wow, what a time for it to happen. As we see that Alec has just got spun off there through turns 1 and 2. We'll have to take a look back at the replay and see what happened there. But yeah, this changes everything with the way it works out. So obviously everyone will be coming down for tires, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out and how the pit cycles roll throughout that way. But as you now take a look at the replay, we're watching Alec Martinez, and looks as though he might have had a little bit of contact with the 18 of Isaac Gann. They're head off into turn 1. He's pretty tight on the back bumper of Doucette, but yeah, just got clipped there. He got turned down across the nose again. It looks like he just turned down into the corner too late. Gann was already there, so just a slight bit of contact right there. That's all it takes for Alec Martinez to get turned around there, bringing out the caution.
Well, this is about to get wild, Blake, because remember, they were down to their last sets. This is likely going to be that chance to use it. Here's the thing. This is going to be the most important set of pit stops of the race. Could decide the winner right here.
Well, it could, and you have to think about, what about 2 tires? What if somebody in the back of the pack just says yeet and just stays out? We may have a couple of drivers doing that. This is really going to shake things up here, but of course you need to have a nice solid pit stop if you are making your trip down pit road here.
Drivers have made their way to pit lane in live action. Only truck not to come down that time was Briar LaPrade. Everyone else has ducked down into the lane. Who will come off the stripe first to try and take the race lead? Great launch for Femi Olot. Femi Olot takes the lead out of the pit lane.
Wow, what a great stop from that team right there, as they were able to take the advantage right there off pit exit. But yeah, it looks as though Femi just had that better stop right there compared to everybody else. And I'd have to wonder if DeJong might have slid through his box there as he came down. We'll have to figure it out as we look back at the replay. And just looking back at it now, it looks like he did. DeJong slid through his box just a slight bit. He had to back up about 2 feet or so, but he just missed the mark. And that's the difference between him losing out the lead on the pit cycles between Steven Wilson and Femi Olot.
Now, the interesting equation of this is, does Briar dare stay out? He's on 39 lap old tires. And will he duck down towards the lane this time? No. This is an interesting call. There are 29 trucks on the lead lap. Only driver who can get the wave with this is Brian Blackford. There are also 3 green-white checkered attempts, getting ready for green-white checkered number 1 here. Remember, if we get the white flag, race is official. Checkered flag is the last flag, and the race is over at the stripe. If we get a caution before the white flag, we'll re-rack them and stack them once again. If there is one on the second attempt, we'll try it one more time. If there's a caution before the final attempt at a white flag, race ends under caution. Oh boy, Blake. Oh boy.
Oh man, Justin, this is going to be insane. Here I thought we were going to go green to the end, just have a nice solid race. The fastest truck wins, and all that gets flipped on its head. And I'm going to tell you what, this is going to be insane because that entire bottom lane is going to get stacked up right now. The thing with LaPrade, I can understand if it's a one green-white checkered. Obviously, we have 3 attempts that we can go here tonight. One attempt at it, the tire, I just don't see the payoff in the tire strategy because you have 3 green-white checkered attempts. So if he falls back 10 spots and then they get another green-white checkered, well, he's either going to have to pit or restart in 10th with, a second and a half slower tire. So it's a big gamble. If there was one green-white checkered, I'd actually really love this move. But with 3, it's just really tough, and it's going to place all the competition. And I'm talking guys that are back in 9th and 11th, 13th that are going to be on the bottom of this. They're going to feel the ripple effects of this because LaPrade, more than likely, if he doesn't spin the tires, he's just going to be very slow. And everybody on the top side, this is Road to Pro. They know what they're doing. They're going to pinch him down and force everybody to get stuck behind LaPrade, and that's going to stack everybody up. Wow, Justin, this is going to be insane.
By the way, 2-to-go signal expected that time by. That's why you see some of the drivers laps down, having to let by some of the air trucks go. Your thoughts on this call, Michael?
Breyer, he's one to do the definite opposite of everyone else. Here we do see it here, but he was riding in 14th, so as long as he doesn't fall any worse than that, it's a win for him. But in his situation where he needs to try and make it into the series, and I think he's a few points out here or there, but at this point, it's just this is one of your final shots here. This is one of the tracks where you're semi-competitive, and you had. This is your chance right here to make you to the end. Let's say he gets off to a good start. He could really control the field here if we get another caution here, especially if we go off into turn 2 and there's a huge wreck or something like that. But if he gets off to a good start, obviously we'll have to watch him as he tries to do a mock start here as he comes off turn 4, see how bad the wheel spin is. But if he gets off to a good jump and there's a quick caution, he might have an advantage here.
We'll have to see. As everyone getting ready to double up, only one wave around Brian Blackford. That gets him back in the lead lap. In total, 30 trucks will be in that position. Lights are out. In the lead is LaPrade. He stays out on more than 35 lap-old green flag tires. Olat, the first driver on fresh shoes, is in second. Wilson, DeJean are in row number 2. Gonzalez and Kerner, row 3. Liebert and Bose, row 4. Honeycutt and Justice round out the top 10. Who do you got at this point first, Blake?
I got nobody. I don't think we're going to make it out of this restart. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm looking around Honeycutt, Ryan Doucette, Isaac Gann, those drivers that are 9th, 11th, 13th, that are on this inside row. They know that LaPrade's starting on the inside. They're going to try to do all they can to get around him. Unless LaPrade slips up and gets on the apron on the front straightaway, if he's on the bottom side in turn 1, I expect a wreck to happen in the middle of the pack just because they want to avoid this bottom lane so bad. But obviously, Femi is in an incredible position right now on the high side to make it by.
Michael, quick counter.
Yeah, I agree with Blake, actually. Femi's got the catbird seat right here. As long as Breyer doesn't spin the tires up into him. And in that case, it would be up to Steven. But Femi's sitting pretty here as we come to get the restart.
LaPrade in control of the field. Buckle them up. It's green-white checkered attempt number 1. Into the restart zone they go. Green flag is out. We're underway. Minimal tire spin. LaPrade.
And as they duck off, they're 2 and 3 wide in the back of the pack. Some aggressive moves being made up front here. To the bottom side, 3 wide for the lead. It's Steven Wilson. Don't count him out yet. As LaPrade actually holding strong there on the high side. DeJean directly behind him.
Femi Olot now boxed in. Gonzalez now tries to get a top 5. DeJean pokes to the bottom side.
Oh, they're wrecking in the back of the pack. Big trouble here in the entrance of turn number 3. Several cars go around. Caden Honeycutt, Adam Gilliland is involved. 2 trucks get the bad end of that. It is Honeycutt. A couple more as well. One got through. It was Justin Lisenby. Brandon Hoff is involved. And that is what these drivers didn't want to see, a late caution that can cause chaos. And now we get to stack them up and do it all over again.
Let's take a look at the replay. And Michael, I don't know about this one in terms of Gilliland. He tried to cut from the top to the middle.
Yeah, I mean, as we're watching, he's 3 wide up top coming off the corner of turn 2, heading down the backstretch, but he just wants to get onto that bottom as quickly as he can. He just tries to get down, but he doesn't realize how close Isaac is, and they were sort of 3 wide there as there was a truck to the inside of Gann as they were coming down the backstretch, but Adam just wasn't clear there, and he cut his way across the front end of Gann and collected Honeycutt and collected Tucker just a little bit there on the left rear quarter panel, as well as Brandon Hoff, as we mentioned. But yeah, just it's a lot of chaos there on the green white checkered. He just didn't judge that gap well enough.
Take an arrow look. This is on board. Take a listen. Some hard licks in that mix with several drivers collected for the first green-white checkered attempt. That leads us to attempt number 2, Blake.
It does, and I have to give a tip of my cap right now to the Burton Kligerman Esports entry of Briar LaPrade, because I did not think that restart was going to go nearly that well, and honestly, without that caution, he was going to get a top 5 potentially out of that strategy call. So I was totally wrong. Hats off to Briar on the great call. Now, this is the flip side of it. We have multiple green-white checkered attempts potentially to go, but he's in 3rd. I mean, it really wasn't that bad. He doesn't get control of the restart right here, but for somebody that was running around that 12th or 13th position, even if he gets stacked back and finishes 8th, this is a net gain for Briar. So I have to give a tip to my cap. I know Parker Kligerman is probably really pleased with his driver right now. A great, or at least what ended up being a great call, but when I couldn't have imagined it, Michael, I don't know if you did either, but 35 lap old tires on a restart, typically it just means chaos. And, Briar talented enough to not let that happen.
Yeah, and he got off to a way better start than I was definitely anticipating. And then I know with these trucks, it's very easy to go full throttle through turns 1 and 2 on a restart. So I wasn't surprised by that, but I mean, it was just interesting to see how Briar was able to hold on like that, just be able to maintain the spots. And of course, commentators' curse is still alive as we curse Femi there. We said he was in the catbird seat. What do you know? He got stuck behind Briar there on the restart, went from 2nd all the way back to 5th. But yeah, I mean, it's hold on for Briar so far. If he gets 2 more cautions, he'd still be good, but I still want to see what that truck can do going into turn 3 at speed and see if he's still able to hold on to it as they're at speed going through turn 3.
His crew chief, Logan Sheets, is probably going to look like one of the biggest geniuses of the day if this works out, because remember, he was in 14th position for the caution flag. He had lost 3 positions, remember, in that very loose moment off of turn 2. He's actually trying to stay at the bottom of the racetrack and look like safe field just in case as well here. And this is a strategy, mind you, with the field, keep in mind, if this is a potential factor here, Michael, drivers and teams are willing to underfuel their trucks to balance things out.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, I have to go take a look back at when Briar pitted. So he came down on lap 94, and it's lap currently 140. We're going to be working 141. So it'd be interesting to see if we get 2 to go this time by, or we get 1. But, I mean, he's stretching pretty good on fuel right there.
0.8 gallons. Is that enough?
Nah, definitely not, especially now that we got another lap here of caution. So that's tough for Briar. I mean, obviously, now that you're here, you might as well stay out and try it, because if you pit, you're going straight back to 28th. But, yeah, now he's just kind of committed here, and it'd be interesting to see if he can even keep that truck running here on the final restarts, if this is the last green-white checkered.
Should note some of the competitors in terms of voice and text chat are now punching air. They're telling him not to worry, because there's the chance of attrition. Let's put it that way. But on the bright side, the battle could be interesting for this race win.
I definitely think so, but I mean, I don't even know if you're Breyer, I would almost consider pitting now because there's just no way you're going to be able to make 2 full laps now. The only thing that would help him is if he, we got to restart a caution, immediately shut the engine off and clutch, and then you get another caution and it just ends up working. Or like Brian Blackford just put up in chat, somebody could push him, but I don't think anybody's that kind here with everything that's on the line. So I think Breyer's actually going to come down pit road here. Nice call, honestly, but no, he's going to stay out. Never mind. All right, everybody, get ready.
Oh, this is going to be fun, especially if we get a third GWC. Then he definitely may have to come. We'll have to see if he can stretch the fuel enough here. On this bold call, 1 lap to go signal. Wilson, DeJean on fresher tires are 1 and 2. LaPrade, Gonzalez, row 2. Old Lapos, row 3. Kerner, Justice, row 4. Doucette and Conrath round out the top 10. An update from second split, by the way. Nicholas Shelton taking home the victory in second split. Over Danny Hansen and Blade Witt. A good performance for Nick Shelton to get that win, as again, LaPrade goes down to the apron to save fuel, Michael.
Yeah, I just 0.8 of a gallon back there like a lap ago. I don't see any way he makes it back around, but I've seen stranger things happen on this sim. But yeah, I'll be interested to see if he can make it around again. If he does run out of fuel, it'll be interesting to see how bad he stacks up the inside, or if he will pull down to the apron and let everyone go as he goes around him at a slower pace. But on this restart here, we get the top 2 trucks throughout the entire night. Steven Wilson and Mitchell DeJong side by side here around a whole slew of total advantage trucks in 4th, 5th, and 6th as well.
Don't forget some of the Dead Zone affiliate trucks like Kerner in 7th. You also have North Sports trucks in that mix and a couple Nexus machines. Let's try this again. Green-white checkered attempt number 2. Steven Wilson control the field. Pace car is off. He stacks them up. Bit of a bump from behind as the green flag waits up on the stand. We're underway as DeJong gets hit.
Well, and he smartly wanted to stack things up and get him wrecking in the back of the pack. Perhaps helps his point situation later on, but he gets a nice launch. They're 3 wide now for third is LaPrade. That's the question. When is that truck going to start sputtering? It's holding on strong for now, but now it is all Steven Wilson at the front of the field.
Remember, if they get the white flag, race is official. Wilson trying to break up the draft. DeJong trying to time it up, trying to retake the race lead. 3 and 4 as they all try and shuffle all around. LaPrade 2 wide as they come down the front stretch.
DeJong has the run off the final corner as we get our iRacing 1 to go across the stripe here. DeJong looking to the high side of Steven Wilson. He's got a fender alongside, entering the corner. We'll have to see if he hangs on there. He's going to hang it right on the edge of the rubber.
LaPrade's out of gas.
And LaPrade's out of gas in the middle of the pack. He'll shuffle down all the way back to as far back as 28th, but the focus is on the lead. DeJong on the high side, Wilson on the bottom side. Through 3 and 4, the VRS Toyota tries to get the run. The TAM Toyota tries to keep the bottom. Drag race off of the stripe. On the apron, checker flag. Steven Wilson wins by 3/100ths of a second. For Wilson, it's his 3rd victory in Road to Pro and his 2nd straight top split victory.
And Steven Wilson finds a way to go back-to-back as the run from DeJong came up just short. We talked about it all race long. DeJong in the catbird position with track position, and then Steven Wilson gets it on the final restart on a great pit call and a great 3-wide move to get around Breyer LaPrade. And that ends up being the difference, gets him another top split victory here at Las Vegas.
And it wasn't easy, not just trying to make sure he had the good pit stop, but trying to put himself in position to try and win this race, Michael. He was a top 2 truck all night, and now wins back-to-back, Michael.
Yeah, he had his strategy played out, and he had his cards set. It wasn't looking too good for him there at the end, but obviously that caution with 3 to go did play into his favor as he was able to take advantage of the green white checkers and hang on to the win ahead of Mitchell DeJong. I thought DeJong might have had a chance there going into turn 3 with how much of a run he had on the high side, but on these restarts, as soon as you get into these restart modes, it's full throttle out to the end. And Steven was able to hang on, and you see him now do the Polish victory lap as he works his way through 3 and 4.
As he celebrates with the Polish victory lap, let's take a moment to look at your unofficial race results after a thrilling finish on the second green-white checkered of tonight's eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series event from Las Vegas. Wilson takes the victory by 3/100ths of a second over Mitchell DeJong, with Alan Bowes rounding out the top three. Fabio came home in P4 tonight. He had a strong pit stop that put him in the picture to try and win this race tonight on the GWCs. Gonzalez rounds out the top five. That is 4 of the top 5 for total advantage. Kerner in 6th, Justice in 7th, Doucette, Conrath, and Burrows round out your top 10, Blake.
Finishing 11th is Jarrett Lieber, a new entry now for Dead Zone and Total Advantage. 12th was Jake Matheson. 13th was Donovan Strauss, who we didn't talk about all night, was running back in the 20s. He somehow gets a P13 out of it, which points-wise a great rebound for him. Drew Freenage in 14th, Michael Finlayson in 15th, Casey Tucker right around, it seems like, where he always is, starts in the back and races up to 16th. Isaac Gann, after being involved in 2 of those late spins, ends up bringing it home 17th. Dylan Jones in 18th, Blake Neer is 19th, and Garrett Maines, not a night to remember for him. He started and finished in the 20th position.
And Brian Mercurio has found his way back in 21st, with Will Norton, who had that early heavy damage on the right front, costed his race there back in 22nd. Justin Lisenby in 23rd, Brian Blackford 24th. Seth the Merchant, we talked about him getting back up in the top 20. He wasn't much of a factor tonight as well either, back in 25th. Alec Martinez finished 26th, bringing out that final caution there that set up the green-white checkers at the end there. Caden Honeycutt in 27th. Brian LaPrade, while the strategy almost worked out, ran out of fuel, wound up back in 28th, the last car on the lead lap. First car 1 lap down is Braden Buyos in 29th, and then 6 lap down we find Adam Gilliland in 30th.
Brendan Hoff involved in that first green-white checker crash at the mid-pack of the field. He finishes 31st. Boyd Hogan had a pedal issue. Pedal failure now takes him out of contention for the Pro Series in the top 20 in Road to Pro. Carson Hocevar, 73 laps down. He was struggling in the mid to back part of the field tonight, with Traded Lapsevich parking the truck early, 126 laps down. That's a look at your 34 drivers in tonight's action. Man, oh man, Blake, it was an exciting one.
It certainly was, and it ended up being one that we didn't expect. I mean, this image you see on your screen, we didn't see that all night. We saw this entire field spread out. We talked about the lack of contact that these drivers had all night. A pretty straightforward race here at Las Vegas. Guys giving each other room. You had kind of multiple lane choice out there to try and make moves on the bottom and the top side of the racetrack, and just all at once, one little hit, they're almost coming to the white flag. Changed up the entire complexion of this race, and it doesn't necessarily flip things too much up in the top 5, but you talk about a lot of these drivers who were running in the back of the pack, a lot of misfortune. Caden Honeycutt was running up front the entire race. He finishes back in 27th. Not a good points night for him, and those are the true effects of having a late race caution like this, is all that shuffling about 10th on back really makes a huge impact with just a couple races left in the season.
And a race winner has now made his way from victory lane all the way to celebrate. Back-to-back Steven Wilson, how are you feeling after a close finish to win this one?
Oh, it feels good. We had a great piece tonight with total advantage. Our drivers finished out of the top 6. We were 5 of them. So it's just a great week for us. Great setup work. It was a lot of fun to race with Mitchell there. We went green, 130 plus laps all the way to the end until we had green white checkers, and it was a lot of fun to come out here, and me and Mitchell were brawling, and it would have been, if it would have stayed green, I think I would have got to his back bumper, but I don't know if I would have been able to pass him. So but that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it looked like several times you had some pace to try and make the pass, just couldn't get enough of a run to get side by side when you were bumper to bumper. How difficult was it to try and set up those passes, especially with the dirty air?
Yeah, the draft this week actually helped a lot. So you were able to really save your tires behind somebody. And so I was just chilling behind Mitchell at the start of the run, but he was doing a good enough job in the lead to not overdo it. So he was saving enough tire too. And he had a pretty fast setup, it seemed, under him as well. So he was able to hold the lead. And through 1 and 2, I could get a run on him, but his line through 3 and 4 was like, he was arcing it a ton, so he was getting a good exit off, and that line wasn't working for me. So the better line for me there was just to send it on entry, and pulled the bottom so it would turn, and I could just never get a run on him. But we were fast, and it was a good time.
Now, next race on the campaign is a road course race, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. What are your thoughts on going north of the border for truck racing on a road course?
Oh yeah, it'll be interesting. I assume Mitchell will be the one to beat there too, just like the Roval. But if it's anything like the Roval, hopefully we can bring home a good finish. I finished second at the Roval, so I've done a few practice laps there, and my lap time isn't too terribly off pace. And I do like the track. I didn't have it purchased until this year, and it was on the schedule, so I just bought it like a month ago. So I don't have a ton of practice on the track, but I think it's a ton of fun, and I do like road course racing, so it should be a good time.
Congratulations on the win. Anything else you'd like to add before we let you get back to your team?
Yeah, I'd like to thank everybody at Total Advantage, Landon Huffman, everybody at Dead Zone, Houston Hammer, Dustin Langert. Dustin did a great job this week. He really put a lot of work into this setup, and it showed with our great finishes. Jarrett, we added Jarrett, Liebert, and Eddie Kerner just a couple days ago, so they're great additions to the team. And as a team, we finished 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 11th. So we were locking up the front spots, and it's great to hear. I'd like to thank Nathan Lyon for spotting. I'd like to thank everybody on the dirt side too. I don't run well enough to get interviewed over there, but thank everybody over there too. Double XP Labs is with us this year, and it's been a good sponsorship for us. Good looking paint schemes over there, and yeah, just thank you to everybody who makes this possible.
Congratulations on the victory tonight. Well deserved.
Thank you guys.
That is Steven Wilson coming away with the race victory tonight. A stellar performance, but the most led laps went to Team VRS's Mitchell DeJean. He's standing by with Blake.
And Mitchell, like Justin just said, 98 out of 134 laps. You have that long green flag run. You manage everything well enough, and then you get that yellow flag. What's going through your mind when you feel like you have a race well in hand, and all of a sudden you see the last thing on earth that you want to see in that caution flag?
Shoot, it's difficult. I was, a bit disappointed to have it come out there. Before that, I had no idea what to expect. I saw Steven closing so fast, and just tried my best to manage my tires for when he got to me, that I'd have a little bit of something left. And I think we timed it like just about perfect. But yeah, unfortunately, the yellow came out, and then I slid through my box, like silly mistake. And kind of unfortunate, but at the end of the day, like, we're just trying to advance to the next stage. It felt really nice to have like good speed to be able to fight for the win here against the guys that are just so fast, like Steven, Alan, and Femi, that were like really staying on me the whole time. Really happy with that. Even though we're so close to winning, I gladly take that. It's a super, super good points day.
And no doubt about it, 390 points is what you collect for this race tonight, which is well above, I'm sure, that threshold that you're looking for week by week. But you come out here, you've had a lot of solid runs here at VRS. What's all the work that's being done behind the scenes? Because it seems like every time those VRS trucks are kind of nestled in there, whether it's Total Advantage or Nexus or whoever's fast, it seems like you guys are always in the mix up front.
Yeah, I think it's, just trying to figure this thing out. At least on my end, I'm not super confident with my oval setup building abilities. So, like every week it feels like I'm learning more. And I tried really hard to learn a lot here and figure things out with setup. And the last couple tracks, I feel like it's starting to click, like figuring out things that kind of work everywhere, and kind of how you have to build off of it. So slowly learning there. I have great teachers to learn from, of Keegan Leahy, Bobby Zielinski, and Chris Shearburn, that any questions or any help that they can provide me is just immense. So they're super efficient and smart in what they do. So it's just awesome to have them on board, help me whenever I need it. And even during the race too, they're spotting for me, kind of helping me figure out how to race this place, and super appreciated to them.
Well, and I have one more question for you, Mitchell, and it's about how merciful of a man you are. Because next time out, we go to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, and I just want to know: are you at least going to try and give us a show? Maybe keep second place within 30 or 40 seconds or something like that. Are you going to try at least make it good for us up here in the booth when you head out to the road course next time out?
Oh boy, I have big expectations now. Hopefully I don't, throw it off the track. But no, I'm really looking forward to road course. For me, that's most comfortable. And hopefully we can take some stuff from the Roval setup, kind of work towards that. We've raced that track a couple times in our Porsche Esports Super Cup, so we're a bit more familiar with that. So we'll see. Hopefully we can put together a good one. The case with road courses and stuff, it's you dip a wheel in qualifying and your race can be completely thrown upside down no matter how fast your pace is. So we'll see. We'll just try to put it together, and hopefully we can have a good point stay there.
Well, certainly so. I don't think it'll be too shocking to see you do well here, especially with how well you've done on the ovals. But I'll hand the mic to you one more time. Give anybody a shout out there that needs it.
Yeah, of course. Big shout out to you again, Keegan, Chris, and Bobby for all the help. Everyone else at Koana Sim Sport Virtual Racing School, VTech. Of course, you guys broadcast for putting it on for us, and all the other guys that helped out with testing, Adam, Danny, and Kevin as well for learning how to race this place. So shout out to them too.
Well, that's Mitchell DeJong again, like he said, just trying to move on to the next stage. He puts a positive race in that category as he finishes up in second tonight. Another driver who we've talked to a couple of times this eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series season is Alan Bowes, another Total Advantage driver, and he's caught up with Michael Guerrilla.
And yes, we have found Alan Bowes down on pit lane here after a solid third place finish for his number 21 Total Advantage Ford F-150. And Alan, we saw you qualify a little bit further back than what you were expecting back in 15th, but throughout the race we saw you slowly, methodically work your way towards the front. Talk about what your mindset was as you were coming to the field and how your race went throughout the day.
Yeah, I think the big thing about qualifying so far back is being worried about getting caught up in some junk. And I almost did that with that incident. I don't remember what lap. It was towards the beginning though. But I was able to get through that with very little damage, work my way through the field. The truck was on rails. Got to work on that qualifying though. I mean, that really set us back, especially with not having any cautions till the last couple laps of the race. That, I think for sure I could have at least given Steven and Mitchell a little bit of a run for their money.
Indeed, you might have there at the green-white checkers there, but you did see that caution come out with 3 to go with Alec Martinez spinning there. What was going through your mindset? What was your strategy as you were planning for these last three green-white checkers?
Well, we Houston Hamer and I actually set the truck up pretty much for like a Q run there at the end. We taped it up, didn't take any fuel, but it wasn't quite enough. For some reason, it held me in the pit stall for a couple extra seconds, so I lost quite a few spots. But just putting myself in the right position the last couple restarts there, that's what got me to third. And Femi before the race even tweeted out that he was going to steal my picture for the good luck, so gave him the good old BR there at the end of the race.
Yeah, you did give him the good luck there as Femi was able to come home in fourth behind you. Quick question to you about the Total Advantage Brigade. Obviously, you guys had something figured out tonight as you guys occupied a majority of the top 10. Talk about where you guys thought you were better than some other teams in the field.
I think definitely long run. We had a pretty good truck all around, but long run we were really quick. When people weren't quite able to move around, we were able to pretty much put the truck wherever we needed to get around people. But yeah, Total Advantage Motorsports, we did a great job this week. Finishing first, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh with Eddie Kerner, or not seventh, but Jarrett Liebert. We added those two guys to the team this week, and hopefully we keep this moving forward.
And moving forward, indeed, we will be going to north of the border in Canada at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So we've been able to see you do some well performances on the road side of things, especially in the Coke Series. What are your expectations going into that race, and what's the mindset when you guys go into knowing you guys have been putting solid results in?
I think going into Mosport or Canadian Tire, the big one is just survive. Pretty much same mindset as the Roval. If we queue bad, just survive. That's all we need to do. And I'm sure Dustin Lingert, Houston, Colin Keister, Jarrett Liebert, I'm sure they're all going to put together a good truck, and it's just going to be down to me to actually drive it.
It surely will be down to you. And just want to leave you with final thoughts here. Anyone you'd like to thank here as we close out tonight's event here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway?
Yeah, as I do every week, I'd like to thank Landon Huffman for the support. You know, he's been a pretty cool guy. Dustin Lingard, Houston Hamer again. Brandon Wilkinson couldn't make it tonight. Hopefully I'll have him on the box or on the spotter stand for Canadian Tire. But, you know, Femi, Steven, Jarrett, Eddie, Michael Gonzalez, you know, he finished 5th tonight. That's awesome for him. He put in a lot of work this week to get up to speed, and he was absolutely flying in the long run. So I hope to see this type of speed out of him for the rest of the season.
Indeed, we hope to see you being competitive here next time we see you here at Mosport. That's your 3rd place finisher, Alan Bowes.
Thank you very much, Michael. Once again, we'd like to thank Bowes, DeJean, along with Wilson for taking the time to speak with us for post-race coverage here on Podium Esports. A couple things to touch upon. I'd like to thank the Dank Hobbit and Cool Dude 842 for their Tier 1 subscriptions to Podium Esports. We also like to remind you that we are just 16 follows away from 10,000 for Podium Esports on Twitch. So be sure to smash that follow button as well as subscribe to keep up with the latest action taking place on Podium Esports. But it was an intense finish to this one after what was a very long green flag run, 130 plus laps, Michael. Then it all got shooken up with the green white checkers.
It did shake things up indeed, and it was a crazy finish there to the end as we had the different strategies with taking tires, and then that one of Briar LaPrade staying out and eventually running out of fuel, but surviving 2 green white checkers. Most of the field kept it together there, and able to come out on top there with Steven Wilson after just being able to take advantage of Mitchell DeJong's mistakes on pit road there and taking the win here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway.
And we're going road course racing next in my home country track. It's Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, for those who do not know, up on the Canadian side of the border across from Detroit. Your thoughts on what we should see when we go road course racing soon?
Will definitely be interesting. It would be a very similar style track to what the Roval was earlier this year. There's some tight corners, there's some high-speed corners as well. But that'll definitely lay the ground for the final 3 races at Texas, Martinsville, and Phoenix, and start to give us a clearer picture of what we have going towards the Pro Series.
We'll have to see your quick final thoughts, Blake.
Well, I think my thoughts are summed up in kind of what I said in my interview with Mitchell, is that I expect him to be, obviously the target is on his back for anybody else, but like Michael said, going to be very similar to the Roval, lots of tight corners, lots of elevation changes. I think it'll do well with that, and of course you have to take into consideration the caution rules and whatnot being a little bit different, which into that final corner there always seems to be some sparks at Canadian Tire, and who knows if we'll see that next time out.
Absolutely. I'd like to thank you for taking the time to tune in for tonight's action for the eNASCAR iRacing Road to Pro Series here on Podium Esports. Plenty of action is coming up on the horizon. Tomorrow night, the Cars Esport Tour heads to North Wilkesboro Speedway on July 22nd. That starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. You can catch that here on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. Also on Sunday, you can catch the GameWorks Racing League rather, as they go to Richmond Raceway for their 2nd ever series event. Last time, the Elliott Sauer Esports machines finished up at the front. Can they keep the momentum going at the short tracks? We'll see at 8 p.m. Eastern. You can also see that on twitch.tv/Podium Esports. The following night, it's the All-Star Race, the 2nd annual event for the Sim 500 Trans-Service Cup Series. You can catch that on July 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern. Once again, on Podium Esports' Twitch. Then on iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series says hello to Michigan International Speedway. Who will win in the Motor City? Find out by watching July 28th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. With that, it's time to say goodbye. keep in mind that a raid is coming up in the next few moments. Be sure to follow that raid and follow the action across the iRacing service. But for Gary Sexton, John Theodore at Podium Esports, for producer Ryan Bauer, along with my broadcast partners tonight in Mike Cocorellia, Blake McCandless, along with myself, I'm Justin Prince. Thank you for watching tonight's broadcast. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday. Follow along with the raid coming up in just a few moments.